everyone, it's Lindsay, and I'm here today to share with you how you can create some custom sentiments in Photoshop Elements. So I am starting out in Photoshop Elements, and I'm going to open up a new blank file that is 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. I'm going to go ahead and name it now, and this was a Grandparents' Day card. It was a couple Sundays ago. This was the card my kids gave their grandparents. So I didn't have a sentiment that read Happy Grandparents' Day. So I went in with this digital stamp. This is from Craft and Desert Divas. This is the Jelly Bean Machine digital stamp, and I just placed that on this panel, clicked my green arrow, and put it down in the bottom right hand corner to start with. So now I want to go ahead and put on Happy Grandparents' Day. So I'm using the text tool on the left hand side, and then that brings up in the bottom all these options for that specific tool. So you can see I can change the size, I can change the color, and really Photoshop Elements allows you to change the color to anything you could imagine. Any certain specific color that you want, you can change it to. Here you can see all the options. Then if I click that little rainbow icon at the bottom, I have it pulls up this little graph almost, and you can scroll through the rainbow colors on the right there, and you can see it changes to all your different shades. I'm going to keep mine black today, and then I'm going to use the horizontal text tool. There's also a vertical text tool if that suits your card better. You can change the size of your font. You can change the actual font itself. Now right now you can see I am typing out my sentiment. It's not showing up, and that is because my typing layer is underneath my actual digital stamp layer. So once I'm done typing out the sentiment, I'll go ahead and click that green arrow, and then on the right hand side I'll drag that layer on top of the digital stamp layer, and that makes it show up on top of that. So if that happens to you, just change your order until you get it to show up. So now that I've rearranged my layers, I'm going to go ahead and just scale this Grandparents' Day sentiment down so it fits on the actual panel. And then I want to show you a few of the different options that you have. So I said you had the vertical text tool, and here you can see I've clicked that, and I can go ahead and type out my sentiment, but instead of aligning itself horizontally, it aligns itself vertically, which is a nice option to have. Also, you've got all these other options down here to where you can make your own sort of a wavy line, and your text will follow that line as well. So if I wanted to go at an angle around the actual machine, the Jelly Bean Machine, I could do that. You can also come up here and you can warp your text. Now I'm going to show you an arch warp, but you can see you've got all these different options. You can inflate, you can squeeze, you can twist, you can bulge it. You've got all these different options. So I'm going to do an arch. You can make your arch bend less or more depending on the percentage you see here, and then you can distort it. So if you want it to be bigger on one side, you can use your horizontal distortion for that. And then if you want more of, like, I guess I would call it the Star Wars, Star Trek, I'm not sure which one it is, but you can see you can do a vertical distortion for that, so you can make the bottom a little bigger or the top a little bigger. I'm keeping mine just relatively simple here. I've got a little bit of an arch. I will end up taking that out, but it is an option that you know is there if you ever want that on your card. Okay, so not only with your text tools do you have options, but you also have options with this little, on the bottom right hand corner there is an effects tab, and that brings up all these drop shadows, bevels. You've got different things you can apply to your sentiments. Now I've chosen some bevels here that I just want to show you. I'm going to go ahead and really zoom in on this so you can see just what it does to the sentiment. You can see that that one puts a nice bevel on it, and it makes it look almost 3D. Now if you don't like any of these and you just want to change it out, just hit your undo button on the bottom left hand corner. Then you can go back in and add different ones. Here you see some drop shadows. These are one of my favorites that I like to put on different sentiments in my title cards for my videos. Then you can see, you won't be able to see these because it's on a white background, but on a black background, these outer glows really make your sentiments pop as well. If you're printing off on a dark background, you'll be able to see it better. You've got all these different options you can go through. I'll click on the Show All button just so you can see all your different effects. These can all go on top of your sentiments and make them really stand out and really customize what you're using. Here you've got an even bigger drop shadow, so it's more prominent. And there's a more grainy one you can see, and you can layer these up too. So here I am going to go ahead and click on the purple. I'll take that off, and then I'll click on this bevel. I'll put that on. Then I can go ahead and put on this green color, and then I can come back in and add a drop shadow too. So you can layer these up and build them up to really customize what you want. Now you also have your graphics tabs, and when you go to the text options, you've got all these other different options that you can put on your sentiments as well. So here I've got an outline, and you would be able to see this. If it was a white sentiment, it would put a black outline on it. I have a black sentiment, so it's just kind of enlarging it here. But then you've got really special effects ones. Like here is an ivy one, so I'll go ahead and drop that on, and all I'm doing is clicking and dragging and dropping, and there it looks like it's actual ivy that the sentiment is made up of. So now that you've seen all the options that you have to add to your sentiments, the best way to customize your sentiment is just to add the person's name. So this card is going to their grandparents, who they call their Nana and Papa. So you can add Happy Grandparents' Day, Nana and Papa, which you can't get from a stamp. So this is a really great option to really get in and customize any type of like Grandparents' Day cards, birthday cards, and also invitations and like announcements. This is a great way to do it. Once I have my sentiment the way I want it, I'll go ahead and flatten my image, and then I can print it off with my laser printer. I'm coloring in my images today with my alcohol markers. I use the Dick Blick Studio brush markers, and I'm just using 2 or 3 colors for each little image and quickly coloring this in. For the little bears, I use 3 different colors of brown. I start out with my lightest color, I work to my darkest, and then I work back to my lightest. Now because I add so much color, sometimes I do give a little wait time for these to dry off a little bit so I don't get so much bleed. Here you can see on this little jelly bean, I didn't give it any wait time, so I did get some bleed on that, and you can fix that with a white gel pen if that really bothers you. So I went in with some pinks on the ears and on the little hearts on the ears, as well as their noses. And then I came in with some yellows and really started working on that gumball machine. I'm going to make the jelly bean machine. I'm going to make that red and yellow. Those colors work really well together for a kid-friendly card. I'm using grays for the little ball on top as well as the little turn thing. And then for the glass, I'm using some light blues and a gray to blend that out. Now to mask this off, to apply some distress ink around it, I did not print off another image. And I wasn't for sure if I had enlarged this at all or anything. So I just took a pencil and a piece of computer paper. I went around it and traced around it and then cut it out with my scissors. It's not going to be perfect, but it's enough to where it masks off enough where the ink doesn't show through on the actual stamped image. So to put this down, I use rubber cement. This is my favorite way to mask off my digital stamps. I apply a thin layer just with the brush that's included in it, and then I'll flip this over while it's still wet and put this down. Now it only takes a few seconds, maybe a minute to dry, so you don't have to wait long. And you can see this isn't a perfect fit. However, it covers enough to where the ink isn't going to be noticeable on the actual colored image. I'm using Evergreen Bow Distress ink to put a little halo around this image to really make it pop. And I start off with a very light coat and really start to build up that color. Even with the round mini blending tool, if you start out with too heavy a hand, you're going to end up with harsh lines. It's also best to start on my mask and work my way off of it. So I do waste a little bit of ink. However, it's not really enough to notice, so it's not a huge deal. Now before I took this mask off, I also flicked on some water with just a paintbrush, and then I'll pull those bristles back with my finger to get an even finer mist of water. And because Distress ink reacts with water, I allow that to sit just for a minute, and then I can come in with a dry cloth, blot up that water, and it will take away some of that ink. Now if you want to make your water spots even more apparent on this and even more intense, bring in a heat tool like I'm doing here. I'm just going to peel up this mask first. I didn't know how the rubber cement would react with the heat, so I did want to pull up that mask before I brought my heat gun to it. So here you can see I've got a nice protected image. You can't even see any of the little spots where the ink might have gotten on the colored image. And then I brought in my heat tool like I said before and just really intensified those water spots. I kept this card really simple because my kids would have been handling it, or they did handle it, and I didn't want any big items that could be knocked off of it, like sequins, jewels, anything like that. So I kept this really nice and flat. So I put some double-sided adhesive on the back of the colored panel. I used my bone folder to really press that down, and it makes the backing paper so much easier to get off. I'll put this down onto an A2 top folding white card base, and I just line that up and stick it down. And then for just a little bit of dimension and a little bit of fun, I brought in my glossy accents, and I'm just going to apply a thin layer of that all over that clear glass of the jelly bean machine. I went around the little bear's hand and also the one on the bottom's ear, so it didn't get on the bears at all. The glossy accents is a little cloudy while it's wet, but it will dry back nice and clear. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I will leave you with just a few pictures. For more information and the supply list, you can head to my blog, craftingwhilecaffeinated.wordpress.com. The link is in the description box below, as well as that eye in the top right hand corner. That will get you there too, as well as show you a few more videos that you might want to watch. Thank you guys so much for watching today, and happy crafting!